The salt air felt different that morning, sharper, almost metallic with the scent of diesel fuel and impending destruction. I stood on the weathered deck of the beach house, watching the sun rise over the Atlantic, while my family orchestrated what they believed would be my final humiliation. "Maya, you really should leave now," my mother called from the driveway, her voice carrying that particular tone of manufactured concern she'd perfected over the years. "The crew needs to start working, and I'd hate for you to see this. It must be so difficult for you." I took another sip of my coffee, French roast, imported from a little shop in Portland that I'd discovered during a business trip 3 years ago. The same trip where I'd signed the papers that made me a very different person than my family believed me to be. "I'm fine right here, Mom." My brother Derek laughed from where he stood next to Dad's Mercedes. At 35, he'd spent the last decade riding our father's coattails through mediocre real estate deals and country club connections. Still in denial, I see. Classic Maya. "The house is coming down today, whether you accept it or not." Dad emerged from his car with blueprints tucked under his arm, looking every inch the successful developer he believed himself to be. Robert Harrison, founder of Harrison Coastal Properties, had built his reputation on transforming underutilized beachfront assets into luxury developments. The fact that this particular asset had been in our family for 40 years meant nothing to him. "Gentlemen," he addressed the construction crew with the booming authority he used in boardrooms, "thank you for accommodating our early start time. As you can see, this structure has significant deterioration, foundation issues, outdated electrical, probable mold in the walls. It's actually a safety hazard at this point." I almost smiled. The house had been renovated 18 months ago. New foundation, completely rewired, state-of-the-art moisture barriers. I had the invoices to prove it, filed neatly in my attorney's office, along with several other documents my family knew nothing about. "The new build will be spectacular," Mom added, walking around the property with her phone out, taking pictures. 6 bedrooms, 8 bathrooms, infinity pool. "We're calling it Harrison's Retreat. It'll be the crown jewel of the coastline." The foreman, a weathered man in his 50s with a coastal demolition company jacket, studied his work order with a frown. "Mr. Harrison, I need to verify something. The property deed on file shows." "All handled," Dad interrupted smoothly. "The title company confirmed everything yesterday. This property has been in my family for decades. My daughter was living here temporarily, but the ownership structure was always clear." That was the story he'd been telling for months. That Grandpa Joe had left the house in a family trust, that I'd been allowed to stay here out of charity, that the decision to demolish and rebuild was unanimous among the actual stakeholders. All lies. But I'd let him tell them, let him hire architects and contractors, let him spend $60,000 on permits and engineering reports, let him stand here this morning with his blueprints and his vision of Harrison's Retreat, believing he was hours away from his greatest triumph. Derek walked up the deck steps, his expensive loafers loud on the wood. "I'd personally helped refinish 2 summers ago. You know, Maya, if you'd just gotten a real job instead of playing around with your little consulting thing, maybe you could afford your own place. Then this wouldn't be so painful for you." My little consulting thing, Summit Strategy Group, which had been operating for 7 years now, employing 43 people across 3 offices, with annual revenues that would make Derek's eyes water. But to my family, it was just Maya playing business, wasting time she should have spent finding a husband, or joining Dad's company in some suitably feminine administrative role. "I appreciate your concern, Derek. Don't patronize me." His face reddened the way it always did when he felt disrespected. "You've always thought you were better than us. Too good for the family business. Too good to listen to Dad's advice. And where has it gotten you? You're about to be homeless." The lead bulldozer operator climbed into his cab, the engine roaring to life with a mechanical growl that sent seagulls scattering from the nearby dunes. My mother actually clapped her hands together, barely able to contain her excitement. "Robert, you should record this," she said, "for the company social media. Out with the old, in with the extraordinary. That could be our tagline." I finished my coffee, and set the mug down on the deck railing. The ceramic was from a set Grandpa Joe had bought in 1983, each piece hand-painted with different seashells. My family had already tagged everything inside the house for disposal. 40 years of memories, destined for a landfill. "Mr. Harrison," the foreman tried again, holding up his tablet. "I really need to resolve this discrepancy. The property records I'm seeing online show. I assure you everything is in order." Dad's voice had an edge now. Time was money, and he was paying these men by the hour. I have the documentation in my car if you need to see it. I'd appreciate that, sir. We can't proceed until I verify ownership. Dad's jaw tightened, but he maintained his professional smile. Of course, Derek, get the folder from the back seat. This was the moment I'd been waiting for, not with anger or vindictiveness, but with the calm certainty that comes from having every fact, every document, every legal detail on your side. I'd learned that from Grandpa Joe, who taught me that real power doesn't announce itself with raised voices and aggressive posturing. Real power is quiet, documented, and absolute. I walked down the deck steps and crossed the sandy driveway to where the foreman stood with his tablet. Up close I could see his name badge, Thomas Werner, Site Supervisor. Mr. Werner, I said quietly, before Mr. Harrison, waste your time with whatever documents he has. I need to show you something. I pulled out my phone and opened the secure app that connected directly to my attorney's document management system. County property records, updated as of 24 hours ago, current and complete. The foreman looked at the screen, and I watched his expression change from confusion to understanding to professional concern. The property at 847 Coastal Highway, I said, is owned by Horizon Holdings LLC. Has been for the past 6 years. I'm the sole member and manager of that LLC. The deed is recorded with the county. The property taxes are current. There are no liens, no encumbrances, no claims against the title. Thomas Werner scrolled through the documents, his frown deepening with each page. Miss Harrison, this shows Miss Foster, I corrected. I went back to my mother's maiden name, 3 years ago, and yes, that shows exactly what I said. I own this house, completely and exclusively. Derek returned with Dad's folder, triumph on his face. Here's all the proof you need. Family trust documents, transfer agreements, the whole. He stopped when he saw the foreman's expression. What's going on, sir? Thomas Werner said carefully. I need you to look at this. He held out the tablet. Dad took it, confidence still radiating from him like cologne. That confidence lasted about 15 seconds, until his brain processed what his eyes were seeing. This is wrong, he said flatly. This is some kind of mistake. The title company verified. What title company? I asked. Did you actually hire one, Dad? Or did you just assume that because you wanted something to be true, it was? My mother rushed over, her heels sinking into the sandy gravel. Robert, what's happening? Why aren't they starting? There appears to be an ownership issue, Thomas Werner said diplomatically. Miss Foster is showing documentation that she owns this property through an LLC. Until we resolve this, we cannot proceed with demolition. An LLC? Derek's voice went up an octave. Maya doesn't have an LLC. She doesn't have anything. She's broke. I pulled out a second document on my phone. Horizon Holdings LLC was established in January 2019. Registered with the state, properly filed, annual reports up to date. The company acquired this property from Joseph Harrison's estate for the sum of $1.2 million, paid in full, cash transaction. Deed recorded February 15, 2019. The date landed like a physical blow. February 15, 2019. 3 weeks after Grandpa Joe died. The reading of the will had been February 22nd. Mom's face went pale, but the will said the house went to the family trust. The attorney read it out loud. We were all there. The will said the house would be offered to the family trust. I corrected. At fair market value, with a 30-day right of first refusal. I made an offer on day 15. Grandpa Joe's estate attorney, who by the way was not your attorney, Dad, but an independent executor appointed by the probate court, accepted my offer on day 20. With what money? Derek demanded. You were working some nothing job, living paycheck to paycheck. Where did you get $1.2 million? This was the part I'd actually looked forward to. The moment when they realized just how thoroughly they'd misjudged me. Summit Strategy Group had its first major client in 2017, I said. A pharmaceutical company that needed help navigating FDA approval for a new drug delivery system. Our consulting fees for that project were $800,000. By the end of 2018, we had 7 corporate clients and revenues exceeding $3.4 million. I took a salary of $180,000 and put the rest back into the business, except for $1.2 million, which I set aside for something that mattered to me. The bulldozer engine was still running, but the operator had cut the throttle, clearly sensing the drama unfolding. The rest of the crew stood around their trucks, watching. Dad found his voice, though it came out strained. Joe would never have sold to you without telling us. He wouldn't have gone behind our backs like that. He didn't go behind anyone's back. The estate sale was completely legal and properly advertised. Any member of the family could have made an offer. You all just assumed that because you wanted the house, you'd get it. Grandpa Joe taught me something you never learned. Assumption is not the same as ownership. I pulled up another document. This is the title insurance policy, issued by Commonwealth Title Company, confirming clear title. This is the property survey, completed in March 2019, showing the exact boundaries of the parcel. This is the most recent property tax statement, showing taxes paid in full through 2026. And this, I scrolled to a final page, is the notice of trespass I'm prepared to file if you don't remove your vehicles and equipment from my property within the next 30 minutes. Thomas Werner cleared his throat. Mr. Harrison, I'm very sorry, but we cannot proceed. The documentation Miss Foster is showing clearly establishes her ownership. If we were to demolish a structure without verified owner authorization, we'd be liable for— I understand, Dad said coldly. He turned to me, and for the first time in my life, I saw something in his eyes that wasn't disappointment or dismissal. It was genuine shock. How long have you been planning this? I haven't been planning anything. I bought the house because I loved it and wanted to preserve it. I didn't tell you because you never asked. You just assumed, made your plans, and expected everyone to go along with them. That's always been your approach. We're family, Mom said, her voice breaking. Family doesn't do this to each other. You let us spend money on permits, on architects, on your assumptions. I finished. I never told you this house was yours. I never agreed to any demolition. You decided what you wanted reality to be, and got angry when reality didn't comply. Derek's face had gone from red to purple. You sneaky manipulative. Careful, I said quietly. We're on my property. I can have you removed for harassment. Thomas Werner was already signaling his crew. Pack it up, guys. Job's cancelled. He turned to my father with genuine sympathy. Sir, I'm sorry for the confusion. We'll need to charge you for the mobilization costs, but we'll waive the standby time. This situation is unprecedented. Keep the full fee, Dad said distantly. He was staring at the house like he'd never seen it before. You showed up ready to work. It's not your fault the job was based on false information. False information you created yourself, I pointed out. Nobody lied to you, Dad. You just never bothered to check your assumptions. The crews were loading their equipment. The moment of demolition transformed into a retreat. My mother stood crying quietly, her perfect makeup beginning to run. Derek paced near the cars, talking rapidly on his phone, probably to his attorney. Dad walked over to where I stood, close enough that the workers couldn't hear. I underestimated you. You didn't estimate me at all. That's different. What do you want? Money. We can discuss a fair price for the property. I'll match what you paid plus appreciation. The house isn't for sale. Everything's for sale, Maya. Name your price. I looked at him. This man who'd spent my entire life trying to mold me into something I wasn't, who'd dismissed my successes and amplified my failures, who'd been so certain of his own importance that he'd never noticed when his daughter built something real. Some things aren't about money, Dad. This house is where Grandpa Joe taught me to fish, where he showed me how to read tide charts and identify seabirds, where he told me that the ocean doesn't care about your last name or your bank account. It just is. Powerful and patient, and completely indifferent to human ego. So this is revenge, making me look foolish. You made yourself look foolish. I just didn't stop you. I pulled up one more document on my phone. This is the renovation permit I pulled in 2023. New foundation, complete electrical upgrade, structural reinforcement to handle Category 4 hurricane winds. I've invested another $340,000 into this house. It's not deteriorating. It's not a safety hazard. It's probably the soundest structure on this stretch of coastline. Thomas Werner approached with a clipboard. Mr. Harrison, I need your signature acknowledging the cancellation. Dad signed without looking at the paper. The bulldozers were already pulling out, their potential for destruction rendered useless by the simple reality of property law. Derek stormed over, his phone still pressed to his ear. My attorney says we can challenge the estate sale. Undue influence, exploitation of an elderly man, fraud. Your attorney is welcome to try, I said. Grandpa Joe was 78 when he died, in full possession of his faculties, with an independent executor handling his estate. The sale was at fair market value, properly documented, with a waiting period that exceeded legal requirements. But sure, waste more money on legal fees. It seems to be a family specialty. Mom had stopped crying, and was now just staring at me like I was a stranger. I don't even know who you are anymore. I'm the same person I've always been. You just never paid attention. We're your family. We deserve to know. What did you deserve to know? That I started a successful business. I told you about Summit Strategy Group dozens of times. You called it my little consulting thing, and changed the subject. That I could afford this house. You never asked about my finances. You just assumed I was struggling because that fit your narrative better. A black BMW pulled into the driveway, and my attorney stepped out. Jennifer Park, 45 years old, senior partner at Park & Associates, with a reputation for being absolutely meticulous about property law. Miss Foster, she called out. I got your text. Is there a problem? No problem, I said, just clarifying. Ownership for some confused parties. Jennifer walked over to my father with her briefcase. Mr. Harrison, I'm Jennifer Park. I represent Miss Foster and Horizon Holdings LLC. I understand there was an attempt to demolish my client's property this morning. Dad's professional mask finally cracked. There was a misunderstanding about ownership. A misunderstanding that cost my client significant emotional distress, not to mention the expense of having her attorney drive out here on a Saturday morning. Jennifer pulled out her own tablet. I have documentation here that shows my client has owned this property free and clear since February 2019. She's paid all taxes, maintained insurance, and invested substantially in improvements. Your demolition permit, which I've reviewed, was issued based on a fraudulent ownership claim. Fraudulent is a strong word. You told the county you owned this property. You don't. That's fraud, Mr. Harrison. The county takes that very seriously. Derek jumped in. We had a good faith belief. Based on what? Did you check the property records? Did you verify the deed? Or did you just assume that because you wanted something, it belonged to you? My mother found her voice. This is all so unnecessary. Maya, we can work this out as a family. We'll sit down, discuss everything calmly. There's nothing to discuss, I said. This is my house. I'm keeping it. Your plans for Harrison's retreat will need to find a different location. You're being incredibly selfish, Derek said. This property could have been worth $8 million once we developed it. You're costing the family a fortune because of some sentimental attachment. I'm not costing the family anything. I'm keeping my property. If you want to develop beachfront real estate, buy your own land. Dad was looking at the blueprints in his hands, probably calculating how much time and money he'd wasted. The investors are going to pull out. We promised them this specific location, the sightlines, the beach access, Not my problem, I said simply. Jennifer cleared her throat. Mr. Harrison, my client would be willing to forgo legal action regarding the fraudulent permit, if you agree, in writing, never to make any future claims on this property. We'll need that signed today. I'll have my attorney review. No review. Sign it now, or Miss Foster files a complaint with the county, and possibly a civil suit for the emotional distress and attorney fees she's incurring today. Dad looked at me, and for a moment I saw him actually consider fighting. But he was a businessman, and businessmen know when the numbers don't work. He took Jennifer's pen and signed the document. I'll need copies for my records, he said stiffly. I'll email them to you. Jennifer tucked the signed agreement into her briefcase. Miss Foster, anything else you need? No thank you, Jennifer. I appreciate you coming out. That's what you pay me for. Call if they cause any further problems. She nodded professionally to my parents and left. The driveway was suddenly very quiet. The demolition crew was gone. The bulldozers were gone. It was just my family standing on my property, facing the reality that their assumptions had been shattered. I think you should leave now, I said calmly. I have work to do inside. Work? Mom's voice was small. On a Saturday, Summit Strategy Group has a major client presentation Monday. I need to finalize the analysis. The consulting thing is real? Derek asked, still trying to process. $7.2 million in revenue last year. 43 employees. Offices in Portland, Boston and Atlanta. Very real. Dad straightened his shoulders, trying to salvage some dignity. I suppose congratulations are in order. For your business success, thank you. Though I have to say this whole situation could have been avoided with better communication. I almost laughed. You're right. If you'd communicated with me at all, instead of making assumptions and sending me updates about your demolition timeline, this could have been avoided. You could have asked, Maya, do you own this house? I would have said yes, and we'd have skipped this entire embarrassing scene. Mom dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. So what happens now? Do we just not see each other anymore? That's up to you. My door is open, but not for people who think they can bulldoze my life to suit their plans. If you want a relationship with me, it has to be based on who I actually am, not who you wish I was. Derek was already walking to his car. This is insane. You've always been difficult, Maya, but this is next level. Goodbye, Derek. He left without another word, tires spinning in the gravel. My parents stood there a moment longer, looking lost and small, in a way I'd never seen before. Your grandfather would be proud of you, Dad said finally. He always said you had his head for business. He did. You just never listened. They walked to their Mercedes in silence. Mom paused before getting in. The house looks beautiful, by the way. The renovations, from what I could see. Thank you. Maybe we could visit sometime, just to see what you've done with it. I considered that. When you're ready to see it as my home, instead of your missed opportunity. She nodded and got in the car. Dad started the engine but didn't leave immediately. Through the windshield, I could see him looking at the house, probably reimagining the last 6 years with accurate information instead of assumptions. Then they were gone, and I was alone with the sound of the waves and the cry of seagulls. I walked back inside my house, my completely and totally owned house, and stood in the living room where Grandpa Joe's seashell mug still sat on display. The morning sun streamed through the new energy-efficient windows I'd installed, illuminating the refinished hardwood floors and the framed photographs of 3 generations of our family. My phone buzzed with a text from Jennifer. Property rights established. They won't be back. Well done. I texted back a thank you and sat down at the kitchen table, where I'd spent countless mornings with my grandfather, learning about tides and business, and the importance of understanding what you actually own versus what you just think you deserve. My laptop was already open to the presentation for Monday's client meeting. A pharmaceutical company needed help navigating FDA approval for a new cancer treatment. The fees would be substantial, but more importantly, the work mattered. Real problems, real solutions, real impact. That's what Grandpa Joe had taught me. Success isn't about looking impressive or building monuments to your ego. It's about doing actual work that solves actual problems for actual people. The beach house would stand, the waves would keep rolling in, and somewhere in the city, my family would have to reconcile their assumptions with reality. I had work to do.